Now, the fifth day of protest is underway as part of the national strike called by the Confederation of Indigenous Nationalities against the policies of President Guillermo Lazo's government. With more details, our colleague.
3 years have passed and the echo of resistance continues to ring out in the streets, in parks, in the open wounds. The family of Byron Watatuka, one of the 6 protesters killed in June 2022, marched again in Quito, not only to demand justice, but to shut out what the state wanted to silence, that Byron was not a criminal, he was a leader, a father, a man who chose dignity over fear.
He was a good person. He was a hard-working man. He worked. He was putting his children through school. And now he has left his children orphaned. And I still suffer for my grandchildren. You see, I am helping my grandchildren. I am continuing on that path so that they can study.
The national strike was not just a protest, it was the roar of a country that was tired of paying the bills of others. It was the bursting of a pressure cooker built up over years of neglect, exclusion, and structural racism. While Guillermo Lazo's government responded with repression and empty rhetoric, the streets spoke another language, the language of dignity.
Independent media outlets have set a very important precedent that is essential in many cases, because it provides conclusive evidence of what happened, how it happened, and obviously not only in court cases or cases that are being investigated by the prosecutor's office, but also in the national perspective that each of us has regarding what the strike was. It was not the same thing to experience it through the alternative media than through the official channels.
Official channel, mainstream media that reproduce the discourse of power without filters. National television stations repeated images of chaos without context. teleSUR decided to be at the heart of the conflict, to work with the protesters, to listen to the indigenous communities, record the voices of the women who cooked to sustain the resistance of the young people who confronted rifles with the stones, of the community leaders who, instead of weapons, carried a list of demands.
The mass media, the private media, present a narrative, and that narrative is their truth, hiding the truth of what is really happening in society as a whole. That is why I believe it is important to have another narrative from community media, alternative media, media that is not aligned with the policies imposed by the International Monetary Fund.
The spark that ignited the revolt was the elimination of subsidies, but the real fuel was something else, the historical neglect. It was 18 days of resistance that do not fit into the dichotomy of good protesters versus violent infiltrators, because the true face of violence is structural, it is neglect. And teleSUR knew how to see it. It did not reduce the protest to a mere story. It narrated it for what it was, a dispute for the right to exist with dignity.
That is why I think it is important the alternative media, the community media, teleSUR, and other media have become a spokesperson, has given a democratic contrast to the stories that are happening in our society. It is absolutely necessary.
Telling that truth had consequences. Our team felt the repression firsthand, but we understood that at that moment it was essential to inform.
In Ecuador, without the presence of media such as teleSUR or others, it would have been impossible to get out the information about what happened in the uprisings of 2019 and 2021, and if that information had not been filtered, we would not have had the tools and the conditions to demand that the state stop the repression and the violence.
That is why teleSUR is uncomfortable, because it dared to challenge the official discussions and also the forgetfulness. Thanks to teleSUR, Ecuador and the world learned the true roadmap of the indigenous movement, not through filters nor distortions, but from the voices of those who trace it. Because to make visible someone is not only to show him, it is to legitimize the word, the rage, and the hope. With images by Henry Villajo,
Elena Rodríguez, teleSUR.